Hey everybody, this is Austin Suther with TechRaptor, and today I'm joined with Andrew Hulshult, who has recently worked on Iron Lung's OST as well as various boomer shooters. You may have heard of Dusk, a Medieval, all of that. Andrew, can you tell us a bit about yourself and some of that past work I just mentioned?
Yeah, my name's Andrew Hulshult. I've been working in the game industry for since 2012 now, so a long time. I don't know, like 12, 13 years. And just recently, now getting into scoring films. But I've worked on some things like the Rise of the Triad reboot in 2013, which kind of got everything started. Dusk, a Medieval, Doom, Eternal, Doom, the Legacy stuff. Heretic Hexen as of late. Yeah, like quite a few shooters,
Yeah.
and just wrapped up working on Iron Lung with Markiplier and David.
Yeah, that was really cool to see because I was sitting in theaters. I honestly hadn't even played Iron Lung until saw the movie like a week ago, and then I played Iron Lung a couple days ago just to get ready for this. But I saw your name
Yeah.
in the credits, so I'm like, whoa, okay, I know that guy. So I started to pay a lot more attention to the music in the movie. So basically, I just for my first question, I want to know like what were your initial thoughts on getting called in to do Iron Lung's soundtrack.
It was kind of crazy. David, I told David like 100 times after we got done with like Dusk development. I was like, you know, what would be cool. Like I don't know. Like I just feel like if a film came around, that would be cool to score to. And this was like going back to having conversations all the way back to like 2019 and 2018 and stuff. I'm like, I don't know. I just want to try it at one spot. And then like it was like 2022, I think, late 2022 or like maybe summer of 2022. I can't quite remember. He called me and was like, "Hey, you remember how you said you wanted to work on a film?" He's like, "So, what if I told you you could and that I think that you'd be perfect for it?" And I was like, I'm thinking like, small thing. Like I'm like, yeah, cool. Like, yeah, what do you got?" He's like, "Well, Markiplier," and I'm like, "Well, okay, like, all right, well, what's happening here?" So he said that Mark really liked Iron Lung and wanted to do a film over Iron Lung and wanted David to be involved with it the entire way through, which I was already like, that sounds great. But when he said, "Yeah, Mark wants to sit down with us and like and meet you and everything," and I was like, "Yeah, cool, sounds great." And he couldn't have been more like just, "Hey, do it your way," and that's all I want is I want you. Like whenever we start doing this stuff, and he accepted the terms that I laid out, and it's been awesome. This has been fantastic.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you've worked with David on projects before, but I imagine it was quite different to work with Markiplier, who's he's already a well-known YouTuber and then a now a director. So what was it like just to like be able to work with him? Were you familiar with his work prior?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Like he started making videos, I think, whenever I just started getting into the industry. Like I think that like we're about the same age. So like I'm pretty sure that there's a little bit of a parallel there. Um, it was sick, man. Like it was so much fun. Like that guy is a constant creative, is always looking for something to better the project without getting like too crazy into it. Is always open to ideas and always open to suggestions. And it's just been awesome. Like going back and forth to California to meet to him to see cuts, and sometimes in Austin, and sometimes he'd come down here to Dallas. Just every time, it didn't feel like any time was wasted. It felt like I'm getting something out of this that I can then take home and continue to write music with, like just throughout this entire thing. But bouncing ideas back and forth with him uh, was interesting because films are a lot different from games, is what what I learned. Where in a game, whenever I'd step into it, like 90% of it is, please make music that doesn't suck, make something that's cool for the player, and have fun. And like it's like, you know, I have complete creative control for the most part. Whereas whenever you step over to a film, you're dealing with a director who has a specific vision and an editor who has a specific vision. And that was a little bit of a shakeup for me at first because I've been so pampered. I've
Yeah.
been so used to like just do whatever. And I was like, oh man, okay, like you want to do this, but you want to do that. And it took me a second to go, okay, this is not games. You can't operate this the exact same way. You can't come to it the exact same way. You have to come to it and talk about the vision, like what this guy's vision is, and understand it to a point where you don't even need him in the room, which I
Mhm.
feel like I got to that. And every time that I would have a piece of music, I just send it over to him, and he loved almost all of it all the way through, which I was like, thank God.
Yeah.
It's my first time. This could have gone so sideways. But yeah, I think we got along super well. I loved every moment that I got to spend with that guy. It was so much fun. Like just all the vibes that I caught from him and all of his editors and everything. I took it back home and that's what I'd use to write. And I don't know, it was a lot of fun. It was just a bunch of creatives that all have the same type of creative mind and gosh, it was great.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was really interesting that you'd visit the set, and I saw like recently you were posting on Twitter like shots from the set, and I'm not really sure
Yeah.
how it works for other movie composers, but I never just thought that they'd be on the set maybe doing music. Can you talk a little bit on like what it was like to see the set in person and how that helped with you creating the soundtrack?
Yeah, that was Mark's idea. That was really, really cool. I was intimidated at first, like when he's like, "Come down to the set and like, maybe you can just write demos on set." And I'm like, "Whoa, like that sounds like completely out of my element. I like my office.
Yeah,
It's real comfortable over here." And I thought about it for just like, I don't know, 2 minutes, and I was like, "Yeah, of course I'm gonna go down to the set and like and check that out. I want to see it, number one." And so he flew me down over to Austin to like about 2 or 3, maybe 4 times. But the first time that I got there and saw the set, I was just blown away with what they had set up. They had this giant thing called a NACMO that the entire set was rigged to, and it's pulling so much power in that place. There's like cables like that are like that thick. There's like 30 of them that are hooked up to this thing to shake it around to give the, like proper actual camera movement to where it does feel like you're on like a sub, like there's turbulence. So
yeah,
that was the first thing that I was like, holy shit, like looking at that. But the other part of it was how welcoming everybody was on set. I stepped in and I was like, I'm the outsider here. I'm pretty sure all these people know each other and they've worked with Mark for forever. And I kind of like, just like for the first minute, maybe 30 seconds, I was like, I don't know anybody here. This is going to be kind of weird. I'm, there's a spot over here for me. I'm just going to go sit in it and I'm just going to write music. And that couldn't have been further from the truth because everybody there was just like, no, no, we're gonna hang out. Like you're gonna meet everybody. We're gonna hang out. We're gonna get to know everybody. And everybody has like same sense of humor as me. Like it's real dark, and like it just we all got along great. Um, it it was awesome that to be asked to come on the set just to write demos. And I will tell you that like about half the demos I wrote under that, I never touched again, and they just made it into the film. We
mhm,
just liked them, and like I was just catching vibes off of Mark's acting that I was like, I genuinely did not think that I would catch. I was connecting with that dude's performances on a different level, and I was like, wow, okay. Sit there with my little keyboard and my laptop, write something for 30 minutes, step outside, take a break, come back, see if I can finish it up, and then hand it to him and be like, what do you think? And it was cool. It was I think all in all there was probably like I don't know, maybe a week and a half of that, like with all dates together.
cool. Yeah, so obviously you're used to composing for video games, and you kind of touched on this already, but like what were some of the core differences that you found out as you were composing for the movie? Um, and like I guess just compare and contrast video game music and then movie music.
Well, video game music is a lot more dynamic. Like you're really tailoring a an interactive experience so that you can kind of push the user in the direction of when you want them to get, more hyped up or more like, oh, you're about to get into a big fucking battle, or something like that. Like, um, or if you want it to be just like experience the atmosphere, you've got all the stuff with like ambient tracks. You can kind of lull them down into that. So there's a little bit more control with that. And that sounds funny, right? Because like with a static screen, you should just be like, yeah, you have all the control that you want because you're just presenting a thing. But I don't know. I guess after like 12, 13 years, I'm wired differently
Yeah.
because films, whenever I was going back and forth to Mark, it was really early on that I realized, wow, I'm really going to need to get in sync with this guy.
Mhm.
Whereas with games, I need to get in sync a little bit with producers for the most part, but a lot of them, like, there's a lot of trust there. There's like some established trust because I've worked with a lot of these people for so long. So it was stepping into a new unfamiliar territory with a new unfamiliar person and reestablishing that trust. And um, that was the first big hurdle. But that was like quickly dissolved. Like there was an instant bond, an instant trust between me and him, and it worked out great. But like honestly, the stuff on screen, so like films, it is a lot more static, but the issue with films is that they can change. So you can get cuts, right? Like something can completely change in a week and you got to rethink it. And with games, it's not so much that. It's like, this is the level, this is how we want to do stuff. So you can kind of write what's in your head front to back almost all in one go.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, but with films, 3 weeks down the road, maybe even like 3 months down the road, you take another look at the edit, and all of a sudden you're like, nah, it doesn't work anymore. Like
Yeah.
we get, we gotta try again because it's all one person's creative vision. You're following all of that.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's a lot of similarities, but there's also a lot of differences.
For sure. You also briefly touched on the fact that you have this like oscillating subset. In the
Yeah.
movie, I don't for any of the viewers that watch it, you'll notice it takes place all within that one sub, which is interesting because there's a great amount of music. Um, so I imagine it could be a little challenging to write a score for something that takes place all within like a single contained area, right? How did you deal with that as you were writing music?
The idea on paper scared the shit out of me. Um, like all one location for the most part, and music's gonna hold a lot of this together.
Yeah.
Um, it's gonna be a substantial portion, and it scared the shit out of me. And then I just realized, no, you can kind of do what you want a little bit. Like that's kind of where you play the best. So, and also like it's been a while since I had like a really good challenge. Eternal felt like a really good challenge. Those DLCs felt like a really good challenge. And I think I was ready for another big challenge, and that's what excited me about this. Um, yeah, all in one space. Man, it would have been a lot harder uh, if the cinematography wasn't so great. Like there's that's holding a lot of things also together. The cinematography in this film is insanity along with the edits. They do so much with a small space on trying to like just continue to make it feel fresh.
Mhm.
And it's just so good. But I don't know. I leaned on that. I leaned on the cinematography because I was like, man, these are just such interesting shots. What the hell? But also, like, again, I can't emphasize it enough. There is something about the way that Mark handles the 5 stages of grief that I connect with. Because, like, I write music for really dark games, and it has some dark subject like material. And one of my favorites is Quake. It's like, oh well, like that guy must be a little dark, like just a little bit. So I don't know. I connected with his performance on that stuff, and it really just it struck a chord with me. So it kind of just flowed out.
Cool. I want to talk about the Iron Lung the game a little bit. That also has a soundtrack, but as I was playing it, I noticed that it's a lot more subtle. Like it's the game is very quiet up until near the end when things start to ramp up. Whereas in the movie, you kind of have to have that soundtrack going to
Yeah.
add on to certain moments. So, um, what did you take from the game, and how did that inspire you, if at all, while you were composing the soundtrack for the movie?
I told David I wanted nothing to do with any of his music ever. No, no, no. Like David, honestly, David was a huge part in this in the very beginning. I went and listened to a bunch of the music from that game, and it's all just weird and interesting and really dreadful. He did a really fantastic job on it. I felt like with that one. Also, he did a great job on one that came after called Butcher's Creek. Like
Mhm.
he's good at just writing just like really crazy stuff. But specifically, I really wanted to get the motif in there from the theme, which has that little whir whir. I thought I was like, man, that's just. I mean, obviously the fans will like that, but like, there's just something weird and unsettling that I can play around with on that. And I asked him, I was like, what did you use on that? That sounds like some like old synth or like stock VST synth or something like that. And he was like, no, that's a what was that? I think it was like a sample of like some kind of fan. And I'm like, what? It's like, what are you talking about? And he sent it to me and then he pitched it around. And I was like, that's crazy, dude. And that changed how I perceived everything with the soundtrack. That little tiny interaction with David Szymanski. Because I was sitting back here going, I'm about to write like music for a movie. I got to go find all these crazy string libraries and we got to go find the coolest synths that we can, whatever. We're going to go spend some money. And like I immediately was like, nope. Like we're going to work on sound design is what we're going to do. We're going to find weird sounds that are related to either the set or the sub and we're going to write with that. And that was my mission statement at the beginning was figure out a way to do exactly what David was doing with the game with some of the stuff and see if you can do it and push it even further in the direction that I would go.
Yeah, I think I noticed on social media, maybe, well, I think you used Markiplier's Scream or
Yeah.
something in parts of it.
I really wanted to put on that post. Yeah, he's screaming die. And I really wanted to put on that post. This is what Mark sent me when I sent him my final invoice.
Nice.
Just attached.
Um, so you use that. You use, like, I think metal. Like, what are some of the weirder things that you use to sample to make this soundtrack?
So I sampled stuff all over the set. There was this big vat of blood that they were testing, like before they were starting to do stuff with the porthole, that they were churning with like compressed air. And guy Jonathan that was on set was he was helping get like push compressed air into this blood vat while I was recording it with this microphone that's called a Sanken CO 100K. And basically what the microphone does is it records up to 100,000 kilohertz, which is like what's the point? Humans only hear 20 hertz to 20,000 kilohertz. The point is if you record that in like what's called HD 192, you can then take those files and you can pull them down by 2 octaves and they still retain all of their clarity, except there's all this information that's in these sounds that isn't audible to the human ear. So it's how Hollywood does like monsters and all that kind of stuff with like animals. They tell you about, oh, I'm going to pitch it down. Typically, it's a microphone just like that. And they just pitch it down with like cats yawning, dogs barking, stuff like that. I would do that with stuff around the set, like the blood. Some of that blood made it into one of the songs that we were like churning into like just this vat. Another one was the prosthetics people. These two girls, oh, I forget their name right now. I feel like an asshole, but they would lay out latex prosthetics. Like they would just like make latex and lay it across this entire table. And they couldn't wait for me to show up because I would show up with that microphone. They're like, "We're gonna peel all of it, and you're just gonna record it, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "That sounds sweet." Used a little bit of that, and a bunch more was either a Theragun on like a piece of metal that I found personally, which I didn't like a whole lot of the samples that I did myself, But there was another company, I think it's either Hiss and Roar or Tonstrom. They're a sound effects library company that has raw files, raw stem files, like uncompressed, un processed files that you can get from them. And one of them was them doing that to this big shitty train car. Like they have a photo of it. I'm like, nobody's riding in that. Um, and it sounded like you're inside a hole and you're a mile underneath and things are just compressing around you. And I was like, ooh, that's interesting. So I took that and fed it into a granular synthesizer, which what a granular synthesizer does is you put a waveform into it. And a granular synthesis will grab tiny snapshots of that waveform. And then you can tell it instead of like, let me start over. It takes tiny snapshots of this waveform, right? The problem is just with tiny snapshots, it would sound like dit, 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 dit.
Mhm.
So you have to tell it, add some release onto this so it'll fold off. So you get instead of dit, 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 you get do, do, do. So you get a little bit of the sound on each one. And what this
Mhm.
granular synthesizer is doing is it's doing it like 100 times a second through it. So it sounds like something completely new and completely different. And I would feed in those all of those sounds into granular synthesis and just mess with them until I found something that sounded like a note that I enjoyed, but still sounded like, metal or a sub or Mark's voice. And then I would just use it. And it kind of became like a little bit of a meme where I was like, I'm going to go home and write music with this metallic shitty orchestra like for this film is what we always said.
Well, I think it turned out great.
Yeah, thank you.
So I think a lot of other people did too. The reception of the movie has been pretty big. I think it surpassed anything that was expected. So,
Oh yeah,
um, like I always make a point to praise the soundtracks you make in my reviews when I review Boomer Shooters, and likewise, I think that you did a great job here. So,
thank you.
what does the reception that you've seen mean to you? Like, what have you experienced from all that?
Oh, it's crazy. This is the biggest reception I've ever had like with anything that I've done, which is nuts because, working on like Dusk was a huge hit. Uh the Doom Eternal, it's like that's a huge IP.
Yeah,
And like still like I just can't believe it. I'm like, "Oh my gosh." Like just the feedback from people on like, I love it. Like, couldn't believe I saw your name on the credits. A bunch of people didn't know that I was gonna be writing the music for this, and they're like tagging me, like, "Oh my God, you wrote
yeah,
for this?" And they're like in the theater, and I really wanted to be back. Please just fucking watch the movie. Send
yeah,
it to me afterwards. But like, man, it's been enormous, and yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it looks like it's got a tail on it, which is awesome. I love that. Anytime I can be a part of something cool with cool people and people want to talk about it for, a few years down the road, I'm all for it. Like
mhm,
that's what it is for me. Like if we made a big enough impact to where you're like, I got to talk about this, like that's cool. I love that.
yeah. I saw it on Spotify, and I was listening to it recently, and like it's pulling numbers, which is great. And
Oh
there are
yeah.
a lot of tracks, um,
Yeah, yeah.
like a lot. And
Yeah.
actually, I was kind of just thinking, like, with games like Proteus, Dusk, Heretic, Hexen, um, like how does the track count differ here? Because it seems like maybe there's a lot more than usual. I could be wrong.
There is, but they're also shorter. This is actually shorter than the Dusk soundtrack.
Mm,
I don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it is. Like I believe it is. But a lot of the songs are like a minute, minute and a half, 2 minutes, sometimes three. There's one I think that's six because it was specifically for a scene that was a lot longer originally. But yeah, like the way that this worked out was Mark said, "Hey, you write. We have an agreement. I'm gonna buy, like I'm gonna pay for all of your writing.
mhm,
Just write. And if you feel like something doesn't fit afterwards, tell me. and like we can write it again. I want this to feel good from your side. He's like, I trust you. I was like, okay. So we wrote a bunch of music, and he used quite a bit of it, but he would also just take stems from stuff too.
Hmm.
So if he was like, this scene's cool, I like this music, what I think really fits here is this part and this part from this song. And I'd be like, yeah, like that makes sense whenever he would explain it out to me. Like him trying to draw, um, get the viewer to connect the dots with some of the stuff. I'm like, yeah, you got way more experience of that than I do, so absolutely. Um, we would kind of work in tandem on stuff like that. But basically, the soundtrack is there's quite a few tracks that didn't make the cut that are still on the soundtrack. That I was like, this is still great music, and it's still very much tied to this. I don't know if there'll ever be a release that'll have all of the music with it, like a video release. Like I
Hmm.
think that would be cool. But everything that went into it, I wanted to put showcase on the OST. Even if it's like I don't remember this track being in the film, it's like, well, it is, but only for a moment. Like we only used this part from it or something like that. So yeah, like tracks that'll be 3 minutes, you might have gotten 30 seconds of it in the film, and then some of them you got the full 2-3 minutes out of it.
Hmm. Sure, for sure. So yeah, you've been composing for over a decade now, as you mentioned, and a lot
Mhm.
of your games that you compose for are a lot more fast-paced, whereas Iron Lung is kind of like your slow burn horror. Um, like, how is that working with something that was maybe a bit like obviously, this is your first movie, but like just in terms of like speed and like theme, like how is it similar? How is it different to your past work?
I think it was it didn't feel a whole lot different. Like it felt a lot more like you're gonna focus a lot more on ambient stuff.
Mm,
Like the ambient tunes that you work with on games, you're gonna spend a lot more time there, and you're gonna put a lot more thought into it as well, which I really enjoyed because I love picking up the guitar and putting those tracks down. I'll do that all day long. But again, like I was looking for a challenge, and that was a challenge in a completely different direction. Make these mean more, you know? So that was really the biggest portion of that I was like, oh, interesting. Like I'm gonna have to put a lot more thought into that. But it felt right at home because, again, like one of my favorite soundtracks ever from games is Quake, so kind of goes one and one.
yeah, for sure. Cool. That's all the questions I had, but I guess just did I touch on anything that, you think should be highlighted about your process or any
No,
thoughts or
dude.
feelings?
I mean, like all of it was good. This is great.
Yeah.
So do whatever you want with it.
Awesome.
Just
Hey,
don't cut it up and make me say shit.
no, 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 we wouldn't do that.
Fuck this
No, it
guy.
sounds like I did
Like
my
like the
job
quick
then. Cool.
edits.
Um, well, hey, it was great talking to you. I really appreciate it, and yeah, the movie was great. I'm looking forward to more of your soundtrack, so I can't wait to hear more.
Yeah, thanks for having me.